Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another League of Legends guide video. And in today's guide, we're going to be looking over Akali. Akali is a highly mobile assassin that can execute champions at an insane rate, which is why she has been banned quite a lot in the previous patches. However, now she's received many changes and balances, so she's got quite a mechanical skill set, which helps her in almost any situation within the laning phase and in team fights. And I'll be explaining what's best for you to take on Akali when playing her, which will include her builds, runes, and any other tips and combos that you guys might be missing out on. So we'll be starting off with Akali's passive, which is Assassin's Mark. When damaging an enemy with an ability, a ring appears around them for 4 seconds. Akali will have movement speed when getting out of the circle, and when Akali exits the ring, she'll gain movement speed towards the enemy champion while holding onto an empowered auto attack. This empowered auto attack has double the auto attack range and deals bonus ability power and bonus AD, along with restoring a small amount of energy. Then we'll move over to Akali's Q, which is 5-point strike. Akali throws a cone of daggers in front of her, which deals magic damage as an area of effect. Enemies hit or slowed by 50% for half a second and deals 33% bonus damage to minions and monsters at max rank. And when she hits an enemy with the Q, it will create the passive circle because it's a damaging ability. Then we'll move over to Akali's W, which is Twilight Shroud. Akali throws down a smoke bomb which slowly extends out into a ring within the 5 seconds after casting, making Akali invisible when she stood inside of it, while also granting her movement speed. When she uses an ability or auto attack, she will break her invisibility for a second or just over half a second. Then we'll move over to Akali's E, which is Shuriken Flip. Akali's E has 2 casts. On the first cast, Akali will flip backwards at a small distance while throwing her shuriken forward at a far distance. The shuriken stops at the first enemy hit and marking them while doing physical damage. On the second cast, Akali dashes towards the marked target and it consumes the mark while damaging them. The distance between Akali and the enemy champion doesn't matter if she's already hit her mark beforehand on the champion, so recasting is possible from any distance after that. Also, Akali can drop her E shuriken in her shroud, which is her W ability, leaving a mark on the ground so she can recast back to it, jumping back to the shroud. The mark will also still be there if casted near the end of Shroud's duration, because a shuriken has its own duration for when it's placed on the ground. And then we'll finish off with Akali's ultimate, which is Perfect Execution. On the first cast of Akali's ult, she dashes in a target direction while dealing physical damage to every champion in her way. Her second cast is reactivatable after 2.5 seconds, which allows her to do another dash, which deals magic damage to all enemies hit and damages them up to 200%, which is dependent on their missing health. And this is why she's a super strong bursty assassin. But usually you'd be using the first cast of the ability to set up a play and then the second cast to execute the enemy champion. So now that we looked over Akali's abilities, we'll be doing a quick summary on them and explain how they work and what they're useful for. So your passive is going to combine with your Q, E, and R ability, mainly your Q and E. As soon as you land your Q, you will be getting that circle, and as soon as you move out of it, you will get an empowered auto attack, which allows you to walk back up to the enemy with the bonus movement speed and hit them. And you'll be able to hit them pretty easily considering her auto attack range does double as soon as she hits the Q. And the same applies for E. However, when you throw your E out to the enemy, you're already going to be far away from your enemy, so you're already going to get your passive instantly the moment you press it. But if you're at a melee range with them and press your E, you will have to still move out of the circle so you can get the passive and go back and hit them for more. Your W ability is going to be nice to get that invisibility, also for making good trades because you'll be able to do damage to your enemies and quickly go back invisible so they can't damage you. But you can't be targeted, so it's easy for you to avoid a bunch of damage as well and to stay within your shroud. And then your R ability is good for escaping and engaging. You can use your first ulti to engage onto an enemy, to use the rest of your abilities, and then use your second R to finish off the play. Usually you'd use the first cast of your R to set up a play and use your second cast to kill. And then when it comes to maxing orders for Akali and when you're unlocking abilities, you want to unlock your Q, W, then E in that order. But when it comes to maxing, you also want to max it in the same order, Q, W, and E. Or you can go with Q, E, and W on the maxing. It really depends on what kind of matchup you have. You can either max your W or your E dependent on how you're going to be on the lane and who you're fighting. Because usually when you max your W, you're mainly doing it for the cooldown reduction and getting it back quicker. E is already on a big cooldown anyways, but it's good to get the damage off from E itself, but also reducing the cooldown with maxing it. So it's all up to you if you want to max your E second, but I'd say max your E second for if you need to use it more for when it comes to escaping or engaging, and use your shroud more if you think the enemy has more point and click abilities. And then regardless, you will always have to max your R whenever you can, because that is your most important ability, and you power spike as soon as you hit level 6. And then when it comes to spells, you want to go Flash and Ignite or Flash or TP. Flash and Ignite is super good for Akali and is her base summoner spells because Ignite works really well with her burst potential. You can use your Q and E along with your passive to burst enemies down and use Ignite to help finish off. Akali has so much potential to move around the lane and to actually engage onto the enemy, along with having a couple of dashes in her kit which helps chase down an enemy much like Irelia, but she has her own differences and she's more of an assassin. But if she does go against a difficult matchup where she won't be able to use Ignite to kill the enemy champion, she can go TP because it will also help her preserve the amount of XP she gets. She will always be ahead in XP and farm, and she'll always be able to roam with it as well. well, because even when you've used the duration of your TP and the enemy's already reacted, your ultimate could also help close the gap by the time you arrive as well. So it's really useful to take either of these summoner spells. So now we're going to move over to Akali's runes. There are two main rune pages that a lot of people have been using, which are super popular right now and are probably one of the best options to take. The first option I'm going to be showing you is the Electrocute Domination option, where you go Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, taking Precision second, going Triumph and Coup de Grace, going Offensive on the attack speed, and getting 9 Adaptive Force for the extra damage early on in the game. Now, Electrocute obviously is good for almost any assassin in the game, and Akali, with all it takes for her is to press Q, walk out of the circle, auto attack, and use your E ability. Or she can use her E ability twice, auto attack the enemy champion, and then use another Q ability, move out of the circle, and by the time she's already done that, she's a proc to Electrocute, so she can let off more damage, and it's pretty insane. Which is why you take Sudden Impact second to let the dash of your E to do so much damage, and your ultimate, and Eyeball Collection is super good just to gain adaptive AD or AP. And since you build Akali kind of hybrid, she's fine with having any of these. You can build her a bit of AD on her as well, which is why it's pretty good to have, because her passive does have hybrid scaling as well. Ravenous Hunter is good to have sustain in the lane, because previously Akali did used to have this feature where whenever she had max energy, her Q would heal her, but they did remove a lot of healing from Akali's kits, so she doesn't have it anymore. So the good way to compensate for that is to take Ravenous Hunter or to buy a Gunblade or something. But then you'd go Precision, take in Triumph, because it's good to get the health restoration after killing someone. It's good for a dive as well. When you're diving enemy champions, you can live with the extra health of Triumph. It also keeps you healthy when it comes to team fights or when it comes to fighting multiple champions, because Akali can most likely spam her abilities considering she's an energy-based champion. And then you want to take Coup de Grace because it helps with the fact that she deals more damage to low health enemy champions, which is also what her ultimate does. Her ultimate is based on missing health, so it really combines really well. And then you want to go attack speed because you want to make sure you're farming pretty well with the 9 Adaptive Force runes to help you have some extra damage early on in the game, taking a defense rune of your choice. And then we'll move over to her precision page, where you go Fleet Footwork, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, and Coup de Grace, going Domination second, going Taste of Blood, and going Ravenous Hunter. And then you want to go 2 Adaptive Force runes, because you can get your attack speed either from Legend Alacrity, but you don't always have to go that. Legend Tenacity is also fine against enemy champions that have a lot of CC as well, but it's your choice if you want more attack speed to compensate for how you farm. Fleet Footwork provides great sustainability for Akali, giving her an energized passive which combines really well with her kit, which gives her more movement speed and health when it comes to auto-attacking minions or enemy champions when Fleet Footwork is up. This also helps her use her passive effectively, giving her more movement speed either on the way out of the circle or when she's gap closing onto the enemy again. This lets off amazing trades and gives off good sustainability within the lane, because Akali's sustainability did get removed, and it's really nicely combined with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter altogether. But all in all, I would use the Fleet Footwork option if I was to sustain within the lane. Otherwise, I would go for the Bursty option by going the Electrocute rune, and that will really help when it comes to fighting early on in the game. So now that we looked over her runes, we're going to be looking over Akali's build. Now, when it comes to building with Akali, you can either go Doran's Shield and Healing Pot, or you could go Dark Seal and a refillable pot, or just regular potions so you can end up sustaining within the lane, because Dark Seal does increase the amount of healing that potions do to you. But most likely I will take the Doran's Shield option, because the Dark Seal is more of a risky option which you could build into a Medjai's later. But I'd say this is more if you countered the enemy champion pretty hard, then I would take that. Otherwise, I would most likely stick to Doran's Shield because she needs some sustain within the lane. And then when it comes to first back items, you want to go for Hextech Revolver or Cutlass, because you want to build your Gunblade as soon as you can. Hextech Revolver is already really good to have because it combines really good with your passive in all, and it's always nearly up all the time, so it's really good to take. Otherwise, when you go for Cutlass, you can have the slow apply onto the enemy champion while doing a heck ton of damage to him, since it builds from a Vamp Scepter, so you'll have some lifesteal as well. And you want to go your boots, you want to build them as soon as you can, and you want to probably build them into Sork boots later. But if you have a heavy AD matchup that's going against you and they're really strong and you really need to build towards Azonias, Seeker's Arm Guard is really good because it stacks armor over time, so it's really good to have because you can build this up to give you more armor, and it's really good for that. Otherwise, if you have less gold, you can go for Vampiric Scepter after you go your Revolver, so you can build towards your Cutlass. And then when it comes to core items for Akali, you always want to go Gunblade first. Gunblade is a super good item. And then after that, if you're going against an AD matchup or a matchup like Zed, you want to take Zhonya's Hourglass so you can avoid fatal blows such as Zed's ultimate, or even engages from like Kha'Zix. And then Morellonomicon is super good because you get a bunch of health, a bunch of AP, along with some magic penetration and grievous wounds. Super good for fighting a champion like Vladimir. And then usually your 4th or 5th item should be Rabadon's Death Cap, because you want to get as much damage as you can, because Rabadon gives you flat out AP along with giving you percentage more of AP from based on the AP you already have. And then Void Staff is really good as well because it helps you burst down champions that already are building magic resist. Having Morella Nomicon and Void Staff combined penetrates a lot, especially when you build your Sorcerer Shoes. And then when it comes to other items, Void Staff is viable, even though it was placed within the core items, but you can also separate this item and it's not a must. It can be a bit of both, to be honest. But then you can go Banshee's Veil if you want a spell shield with some magic resist and some AP, because it's going to be really strong. You want to go Sorcerer's Shoes almost all the time because you get a lot of magic penetration. Otherwise, you can go Ninja Tabi if they have a heavy AD matchup, or you could go Mercury Treads if they have a lot of CC or AP. Later on in the game, you can even go Guardian Angel. She's a hybrid scaling assassin. You can build AD, like a bit of AD items on her, as long as they have a viable passive to go with them. Otherwise, if you do want more magic resist, you can go Spirit Visage as well, because it provides a lot of healing, or it amplifies the healing you already do. Hex Drinker is really nice for matchups that have bursty AP champions, so it can help protect you and stay alive. Lich Bane is actually a really nice option because it has Sheen, and Sheen is the item that allows you to do a stronger auto attack after landing an ability, or after casting an ability. And the same goes with Trinity Force. However, Trinity Force can be a little bit better because it has a lot more base stats, and it has a bunch of other things that can help you. And the Sheen passive is a lot more stronger, but unless you want to go for more of the magic option, you can go for Lich Bane instead. And then when it comes to finishing off her build can look something like this. Pretty generic. You get the healing from your Gunblade, along with having to use the active to slow enemy champions, using Voice Staff, Morella Nomicon to penetrate enemy champions with magic penetration. That same goes with Sorcerer Shoes, but also having the movement speed that it provides with you. Zonia's Hourglass for when it comes to diving into enemy champions and using it to keep yourself alive. And Zonia's will work much like your Shroud. It will keep you protected, and the enemies can't really do anything to you while you're in those stages, unless they predict a skill shot you in your Shroud. And then Rabadon's Death Cap is going to be a nice final item to build to get that nice bit of extra damage. So that was pretty much Akali's builds, and now we'll be discussing like what you could do with her in lane and when it comes to team fight. So when it comes to laning with Akali, you want to prioritize on minions and look for trades. Often the enemy champion will have to walk up and, grab some minions, which is your chance to start trading with your Q ability, much like when you do it with Yasuo, especially at level 1, since you'll be able to reach melee or slow champions easily with the bonus movement speed with your Q and passive, and you'll also get the doubled auto attack range to reach them from very far. This is super good against melee champions. You should also preserve your Shroud for when it comes to making trades, and usually it's good when the lane is pushed to you, so that you have more distance to make on the trade and to give an enemy less chance to escape, since they have to walk all the way back, and meaning they have to deal with all of your dashes and your Shroud. Playing back with your Shroud is effective, as extending and using Shroud without being able to execute enemy champions makes you more susceptible to ganks. Your E and W are your main sources of escaping as well for when it comes to incoming ganks, so you need to be careful on when you use them, and you need to keep some vision down to make sure you're not using them ineffectively. Your Q and E is vital for engages, along with your ultimate once it's available, and that's when you power spike when you hit level 6. You want to use your R to begin closing the distance on the enemy champion after you plan to execute him. It will likely result in their death and burning their summoner spells quite early on in the game, so then you gotta use the rest of your abilities and end off with using your second R. Also with Akali, you should roam as many times as you can, especially when you've shoved your minions to the enemy, or if they have built a freeze outside their tower range. With Akali, you should also shove the wave hard if you see the enemy roam or recall, and make sure you can make an opportunity to recall or roam after that so you don't miss out on any minions. But if you can counter the roam that the enemy laner does, you can also go for it and come back to the lane later and fix it back. And then when it comes to team fighting, you want to prioritize on popping the squishies in team fights. It's the most essential thing for Akali, considering she's an assassin. Akali has great engage potential since her Shroud keeps her alive, along with Zonia's, while jumping into the entire enemy team without even being touched sometimes. This allows for her to make quick decisions on who to execute while allowing the allies to come in for helping, because by the time you have your Shroud down, you have the decision to make to who to execute, and they can't touch you because you're invisible. All they can do is hope to throw skill shots and hope to hit you. But that's why you also have Zonia's Hourglass for when you finish your engage and you want to get out. You can use Zonia's Hourglass at the end to make sure you don't get bursted down, and your allies will help you as long as you're heavily coordinated. Akali could easily dive into the backline, with her being so mobile and having 3 separate dashes in her kit, which makes her slippery and hard to CC. But usually when she's going for the backline, you can either flank or you could just go straight head on, but you should be a little bit careful about it. But then again, she does have 3 dashes, a Shroud, and Zonia's Hourglass to protect her. She is pretty damn strong and pretty damn slippery. So this will all depend on how coordinated both of the teams are. So now that we've looked over Akali's information on her laning and her team fighting, we're going to be moving over to her combos, and then we'll be discussing her pros and cons.
Quick and deadly. I work alone. It's better for everyone. If they're smart, they're scared. won't take long. Cold steel. I work alone. It's better for everyone.
So now that we looked over the combos for Akali along with the tips, we're going to be going over her pros and cons. So one of the pros for Akali is she often wins trades thanks to her W Shroud invisibility, because she gets to go back into her shroud the moment she used a couple of her abilities, or even just an auto attack. Her Q combined with her passive can help make good trades and burst down enemies thanks to the fact that it gives you bonus movement speed and doubled auto attack range. E ability is recastable at any range, allowing you to stick to enemies. So if you land the first mark on enemy champions, you can always recast it and go flying with them. This also includes if they're going to TP away and you have the first mark on them, you can fly over to them for wherever they TP'd, so you can follow and counter gank just like that. It's really cool. She has a lot of mobility within her kit and escape potential, and she's a pretty tough snowballing champion. Also, she executes and sustains well with the core items that she has, especially with Gunblade. Gunblade is super essential for this moment. But then when it comes to cons for Akali, it discusses more that she's more vulnerable for when her W Shroud is down, because she's more vulnerable, she can get ganked, especially if she doesn't have her dashes up. She can be useless when she's behind, since she really relies on the early game killing and farming. But another thing is she is quite hard to master, though she may be easy to pick up. Plus, so many changes were made to Akali within these last recent patches because Riot Games were struggling to balance her, so she's been getting nothing but nerfs recently, but also she got a bit of buffs just to help her up and just to actually make her more of a balanced champion. She's very squishy, she has poor early sustain, and she has low base health, which is why you have to go for life stealing options or sustainable options. And she's quite susceptible to CC, just like most generic champions, so you gotta be careful with that. But that was pretty much the pros and cons for Akali. There's a lot of things to discover with Akali, but overall, Akali is a strong assassin that can dominate almost any champion when she's ahead of the game. So putting a lot of hours into her or putting a lot of games into her can help improve the mechanical play, and she dominates almost in all elos due to how strong she is. However, she has been changed quite a lot recently, like I've said, within the patches, since Riot Games struggled to balance her, but, that's not going to change what her kit is going to be like entirely, as now she's somewhat in a fixed position in the current season, so she'll be doing fine for now, and I think it'll be the best time to pick her up as well. So anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you guys want to see more videos like this, then go ahead and leave it down in the comment section below. If you guys have any other suggestions, go ahead and also put that in the comments, and I will go ahead and follow up with them. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Peace, guys, and see ya.